Hello, everybody. How are you today? Today we'll be talking about the third year on. I think the third year is easier. Once you get past the second year, after you've lost somebody, there is an easiness that comes with the third year that you didn't have in the first 2 years. It's not as intense. I feel that's what it is. The intensity kind of, the knob goes down, turns down a little bit. The intensity isn't so strong. However, this is not to say that the sadness isn't so deep, because I think you're going to feel really sad. I felt really sad, very disappointed. You will be probably wishing that the person had been in your life longer, that they hadn't been taken so early and you could have spent extra years. You'll notice that when you see other people, you'll be out at the shop and you'll see couples, or you'll see someone with families, and you think to yourself, oh, I wish I still had my person with me. And that's quite normal. Most people have got used to you being alone now. They see you as a single person, or the person who's lost the daughter or the mum, and they don't seem to be so interested in talking about it. I noticed people didn't really talk about it anymore. It was like it was just me and it was just me. And I think you might find that too, that people don't actually bring it up. They never actually ask you how you are. You'll have a few of those ones who do, but for the most part nobody asked me how I was, really. They just sort of didn't go there. It was like it didn't happen. And I think you're going to find that really interesting, because you're still feeling it. It's still hurting. You're still having your nightmares or your little middle of the night escapades when you're awake. You're still sitting in the car crying. You're still being upset. And everyone else is acting like everything's really normal. If you need to get help, get it, all right? If you need counselling, or you need to go to a therapist or go to a grief group, you might not get it in your inner circle. Therefore, you might have to seek it somewhere else. And you will find that if you meet other people who've been through a similar experience to you, they'll be saying the same thing. There were very few people in my circle who actually asked me how I was really going with it, with the grief. There were some, but there weren't many, and that's what I'm talking about. There's an understanding that you've lost somebody, but we just don't talk about it. That's what I noticed. We don't talk about that anymore. Occasionally you'll meet someone who'll be different, and they will speak to you a little bit about it, but it won't be that long. It'll just be a little bit of update, how you're going with that, and you'll go like, oh, it's really hard, and I'm still struggling, and I find it hard, and I go, oh, it's a shame, and then I know it moves on. You'll notice too that you'll be venturing out more. Perhaps in the first and second year you tried it, were fairly unsuccessful, so you just kind of didn't do it as much. I tried it and I just found it really too hard. I'd go and try to go to the coffee shop on my own to teach myself to do it, and end up crying in the coffee shop, or not being able to drink the coffee and having to get in a cup and leave. So don't do anything that's too stressful still. You don't have to do it. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You've lost someone you love and it feels like crap. The other thing is, you will find that you will have days where they'll be in your mind a lot, and then you'll have days when you don't think about it as much. You're not to feel guilty. We have to keep living down here. It's hard down here when you've lost somebody and you live without them, but don't feel guilty if you do have times when you're not thinking about them as much. It's okay. I think the first 2 years it's so consuming, that's all you think about, really. And so on the next 3 years on, when you're not doing it as much, it's okay. This is a rebuilding time. This is where you're rebuilding. You were trying to rebuild in year 1 or 2, but because it was such an emotional roller coaster, it was much harder. But now it's really about rebuilding your life. I think you've probably come to accept it on some levels too. So now you might be putting things away, or things that you kept, you weren't sure what to do with. Now you are doing that. Don't push yourself. You know, if the old car stays in the shed for another year, it doesn't matter. Just do everything when you're ready to do it, because it's just a monumental change in your life, and it's going to take time to get over it. It really will take time to get over it. And we're not just robots, we're emotional people, and the more sensitive and emotional you are as a person, maybe the longer it will take you. If you want to do things like change your house around, take some paintings down, put things out, change them around, redo your garden, get a new car, you do all those things. You do whatever makes you happy. And when I asked a friend of mine who'd been widowed, that was what she said to me. Her best advice was, do what makes you happy. And that means things that make you personally happy, or doing things for other people and helping other people. You might want to get involved in some help groups too. It's up to you, really, because now you've been through the baptism of fire. You know what it feels like. And you might even want to do some grief counselling, go and do a course or something once you get better. But don't try and do anything until you're ready. This isn't the time to really rush into the hospice to be a support helper. If your person died of cancer but you're not over it yet, you really need to be quite healed. But you are on the healing path now. That's what I want to say. You're actually healing now. And you're going to have some really dark days sometimes. Don't think you're going backwards. It's like you'll get the build-up thing, and then you'll feel just dreadful for a week. And you will have lots of problems with sleeping and coping and eating and crying, and that's okay. You're still going to have those. These people existed in our life. They were very much a part of our daily life. And so when they're not there, you're going to notice it, especially when it's their birthday or your birthday, or perhaps something gets triggered. Year 3 plus are the years when you can have more things happening that trigger you. You'll be going along fine, and then you'll drive past somewhere you used to go or used to be, and it will trigger it. Or you'll have a dream and they're in the dream and you'll trigger it. So be aware of that. You're always going to have this. You're always going to have that part of you. You remember them, and the memories will come when you least expect it. I found they just popped in, and before I knew it, I was in that place remembering this holiday, or when we went to have dinner there or something. You can't stop it. So just go with it. Enjoy the memory and that you had that special time together, and then you'll find it will dissipate more easily. If you're finding you need some time out because you've been through quite a difficult time and you want to plan yourself a holiday or even take some leave from work, do so. If you feel like the place that you're working isn't supportive of your needs and you want to look for another job, do so. This is a good time to really start moving things around because you're emotionally actually a little bit more steady. I know you're smiling to yourself when you're thinking, I don't feel that steady, but you actually are better than in the first and second year. It's just I found it was different. It was just deeper, and I walked around with it all the time. It's like I was walking around with it all the time. It never really went away. Sometimes I was distracted and it subsided somewhat, but it was always there. And I just got used to that, and I just accepted that. I wanted to feel really happy, but I couldn't, and I didn't. And that was really hard because I could be getting little snatches of happiness, like when I was looking at my grandchildren, they were doing something and I was happy in that moment or in that time, but I actually didn't feel happy underneath. I was depressed, and I think you need to understand that. And if your depression gets too much, you go see your doctor or go and see a therapist to get some help. It's just part of it. It's depressing when someone you love dies. That's the beginning and the end of it. And you can, do all the talk, but actually it's all about how you feel, isn't it? In the end, it's not really a head thing, it's how you feel. People who've gone through it will be good for you to be with. Anyone who's gone through any kind of loss will understand, and they're really good people to relate to and go out with and speak to and spend time with, because you don't have to explain it all. They just know, and you can just sit there. I remember sitting with one of my girlfriends. She'd been widowed too, and we went to have the movie, and then we went and had the coffee, and we were both sitting in the coffee shop, and we just sat in the coffee shop and cried. I always kind of remember it, because we both laughed sort of, because we started talking about something, and then we both started to cry, and I thought, yeah, that's the real world. That's how we were feeling. That's just how we felt. You will get through this. It will get easier. It will get better. You'll get to accept it. You'll get to accept your life without them. I think that's really what it is, that your daily life without them, that's what you accept. If you're an intuitive person, you might feel them around the house. You might even be able to connect to them. You might have dreams with them as well. And even that's wonderful. It really does not replace the daily stuff, but it's pretty wonderful if you can do that. I think that we get this process and we need to go through it. but I think we also need to be really kind to ourselves during it. It's very, very difficult. It's probably one of the hardest adult things I had to go through, and I'm still having my days, that's for sure. But it does get better, and that's why I want to do these podcasts, to let you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You won't feel the same. It sort of changes. How you felt in the first, second year is different to how you feel in the third year. But I'm not telling you you won't feel sad, and I'm not telling you won't have some dark days and bad days, because you will. But don't think you're going backwards. It's just how it is. It's just really how it is. And I usually just go into lockdown. If I'm having a really bad day, I just don't answer the mobile until late afternoon when I feel better. I stay in bed or be in the garden or eat ice cream. I do whatever I need to do, just get through the day, and I let myself feel it, and I let myself be in it, and then I move myself out of it. We are rebuilding our lives. That's what we're doing, and it's going to take time, and our life will be different without that person, and we really didn't want to rebuild it without them. That's the thing. We didn't want to have to do it, but now we know we do. Good luck with it all. I think you can get through this, but don't forget to get support if you need it, because as the years go by, there's less support, but you might still be processing it. And sometimes some people are in such shock that they don't actually do the grief until later. When I say later, maybe a year or two later. So if you're one of those people, just recognize it. If you're really falling apart and going really badly, you get help, because what you're doing is delayed grief. Because sometimes people have a delayed reaction where they just soldier on, they're fine, I'm fine, and then they just fall over. And you might be one of those. So don't think that's a bad thing. It's just how everyone operates. We all operate differently. So I'm sending you lots of love and lots of healing, and I'm hoping that your days get brighter and get lighter, and that you start to enjoy at least some parts of your life.